your voice on screen. You get to say what you think about tonight's WWE NXT and AEW. Your voice matters. Your voice is on screen. It's your WrestleZone wrap-up. Make it pop. Let's get it up there. Let's get that link shared. If every single person sharing this link shares it, they don't stink. I can confirm it. I can smell the stink on the screen. If you're not sharing it, I can hear it in your earbuds right now. You gotta clean out your ears. All right, you gotta clean out your eyes. You gotta be fresh. There's some people tonight. Wednesday nights for wrestling. We have some great stuff to talk about. More comments to find out who I'm not doing it alone. Let's go to Central PA. Let's get a 7.5 dog, if we can, from the one, the only Mr. John, not Clark Kent Clark. John, you covered NXT. I covered AEW, though I did do the double screen thing tonight. I tried double screen tonight to see how I felt, because there were some things on NXT that were catching my mind on Twitter, and I felt like, ooh, don't want to miss that. I want to be able to see that live. So some good stuff on NXT and some good stuff from AEW tonight. We're going to get into it, and we'll get your 1 to 10 ratings. But going in, how did you feel about NXT?
Well, we didn't really have too much announced for the show tonight, so before the show started, you didn't really quite know what to expect. We knew we were going to get the main event North American Championship match, which certainly delivered. Otherwise, immediate thoughts on the rest of the show, it was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was like, out of this world, best of the best, but it definitely wasn't one of their worst shows.
No. And AEW, I would say the same thing. There were some things that really missed for me in some ways, and some things that really hit, and definitely set up some big stuff, some surprising moves set up for the upcoming Full Gear pay-per-view. We seem to have much more of a lane getting to that, just as we do with NXT and what they're setting up here, especially at the end of tonight's NXT for Halloween Havoc. So 2 big shows coming up, relatively close to each other. And, if you want to complain, I think you're just really reaching. I will have some complaints. There's some things that really did aggravate me about tonight's AEW, and there's probably some things on NXT maybe that irked you is wrong. Just me knowing the palette of Clark here and what's going on here. Let's jump right into your comments, though. Someone saying both shows tonight had a pay-per-view vibe. Herman saying that. And if you're with us for the first time, let us know what you thought. Get your comments on screen. Seeing a lot of the WrestleZonians showing up here, some regular faces. But if you're watching for the first time, let's see what you think and get your comments on screen. Maybe tag your friends here in the comments as well. Have them popping off here. Hot tag them in here. Let's get into AEW tonight. The main event was a no DQ title match between Lance Archer and the champion, Jon Moxley. This was built up to throughout the night, with them attacking each other several times, to the point where they said, all right, we have to make it a no DQ match to, live up to these guys being super violent with one another. And the match was super violent. You have people getting hit with chairs. You have people getting hit with garbage cans, a paradigm shift off the apron through 2 tables, which is pretty brutal, but pretty brutal. And that didn't stop Lance Archer from, powering through it, nearly getting out of several different things. And Jon Moxley taking brutal punishment, but being able to just get a quick roll-up out of that big over-the-head slam that Archer finishes people with. To end kind of a crafty finish. They kept it very interesting right up until the end, and he kind of stole one from Lance Archer, who booted him out of the way. Kenny Kingston was on commentary. Kenny Kingston been in the craw of Jon Moxley the past few weeks, noting their history. A few weeks ago, they kind of fought each other in what people thought was just kind of like a holdover program until we got to Moxley. But an interesting move by AEW to go with Eddie Kingston. If you would have told me a few months ago, Eddie Kingston, the journeyman that people know is absolutely fantastic, cuts these incredible promos, has fun, brutal matches, but people really know him as a character performer. And that is not a bad thing. People really love the character of Eddie Kingston. He now has seemingly set himself up for a big pay-per-view program with the champion at Full Gear.
Yeah, and I think they didn't want to jump into something too quickly. I mean, obviously you'll get into the other thing they announced tonight, which we'll get after this program ends.
Mhm.
But I think this is the safe play to not have to build something up from scratch again. These two already kind of have history. We're less than a month from the pay-per-view. I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, it was interesting that Eddie Kingston and his family of the Lucha Bros would come out to kind of sort of save Archer, only to save Moxley rather, only to save them so they could destroy him themselves. It's an interesting move by AEW. I'm just surprised. I'm not to say that Eddie Kingston can't pull this off or can't have a great match. I thought they had a good match a few weeks ago. It was good. I didn't think it was great. Maybe they were holding back on some things. I thought maybe Eddie Kingston possibly was working around an injury in that match on top of it. And maybe a lot of people thought maybe he would have more of a managerial role than a wrestling role. But this makes it look like he's going to be in a title match. And, I mean, they didn't say it, but you lay out the champion at the end of a show. Well, come on, we're connecting the dots here. Other big matches on tonight's AEW to cover. We don't do it in chronological order. We cover the big stuff, right? And there was another big title match. All the titles on the line. We'll talk about all those matches. And this was the women's match. Big Swole taking on Akira Shida. Akira Shida has great matches, but I don't think she has the best matches in wrestling. This was fantastic. This was gnarly. They had Nyla Rose at ringside. They did this throughout the night. This is somewhat redundant. People watching matches, then you think they're going to have a match. They did this with Eddie Kingston. They did this with Darby Allin. It was kind of redundant at this point. So I thought, like, all right, we're getting Akira Shida versus Nyla Rose again. That's cool. But the match itself, Swole really tested her, went to the distance, showed off a lot of great physical strength. I would say Swole's probably the strongest woman in AEW. She showed us some real full body athleticism, but it wasn't enough for Akira Shida. They really want to protect her. 17, now 18-1. She was 17-1 going into this. And that was another thing. They keep reminding you about rankings. But what do rankings really mean in AEW? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Fine match. Not a match I think you'll remember when we have so many good matches like this in terms of short, chunky matches. This wasn't designed to be a big barn burner showcase. This was designed to show that Swole can come up and some people can come down. You do have to do that to flesh out your depth sometimes. Not everyone who goes up gets to stay up there. Sorry about that, big Swole fans. Just how it happens, right? We did have another big tag team match. This is a setup for what's going to happen down the line. This opened the show with FTR, the AEW Tag Team Champions, their 20 Minutes of Greatness program. You get 20 minutes with them, and you get to challenge for the titles. Best friends going at it for them here. And this was a title match. Some of those are kind of confusing sometimes when they talk about the Brush of Greatness.
Yeah, because some of them weren't title matches, right?
Yeah, some of the 20 minutes of greatness isn't really a title match, but I guess with TV matches, you get 20 minutes. So that's like, for like a TV title match, you get 20 minutes. So that's kind of odd. Don't confuse me. I was confused by that. So I'm making it clear. So we had FTR versus Best Friends. It built up to this for weeks. This was really getting going. This was really getting going. And then we have Tully trying to interfere. Okay, that happens. He's helped them win title matches. He's trying, right? He's trying to get his little stuff in there. And they're cutting off every big offensive thing. And they're doing the long drawn out thing where they have one partner getting smashed down. They did switched up where it was, Chucky was kind of waiting for the hot tag and then they flipped it around and they went back to Trent. And so when they do that, you think, all right, they're really going to go into deep water here. And I think they went a significant period of time only for Kip Sabian and Miro to get involved with an arcade machine at ringside, because they're into arcade games. And it was just one of those things about AEW where I'm just like, you guys have great wrestling, and I think you try to out-sports entertain people with all these different pieces and stuff like this.
Sure.
This was a great match. This was really picking up steam, and they were really showing off both teams and what they can do and how, Best Friends have a really compelling dual offense to what they can do, and FTR do as well. I thought this was probably a better pairing for FTR in terms of their style with, a combination of power and 2 feet on the ground that you see them do. Now they have another team that's sort of doing that. And then we have Miro and Kip Sabian getting involved. And then the finish is a dusty finish. This went from the best Mexican food I ever had to 3-day-old Taco Bell. And that is no rip on Taco Bell. Just Taco Bell doesn't sit well. You know what I mean? And that's the thing here that really got me angry is AEW's been doing this a lot. Big fun matches we've built up to with a big old slap across the back of your head with some interference. This was really cool. And it just left a bittersweet taste in my mouth. AEW overall, this was a fun show. This is a really, really fun show and built up a lot of different things for the upcoming AEW Full Gear. The brackets look pretty cool. Seems like we're going to get Hangman versus Omega, which is pretty neat. But one thing I got to thumb down tonight is, do rankings mean anything in AEW? They talk about rankings, but we have a tournament to get a champion. Some of those guys that are in that tournament are not ranked. Some of them are ranked. Okay, so why isn't the whole tournament built up on people that are ranked, and then you seed it based on that? Doesn't happen. All right, and then on top of that, you have this draw tournament they did, this draw thing where we're going to draw names out of, like, almost like the Royal Rumble used to be, you know, where they draw numbers. And this was pretty ridiculous here, as they kind of drew numbers for this. And the Young Bucks are in. Tony Schiavone was not happy about that. And he was not pleased when he announced it. And they combine with Butcher and the Blade and Private Party, and FTR is present. And they kind of peel out. And it's going to be Young Bucks mowing through all these teams, apparently, to get to FTR at the Full Gear pay-per-view. Looks like that's the direction they're going in. Maybe they swerve this. Maybe they delay that one more time. But with the distance that AEW has between pay-per-views, I don't see them delaying here. I see the Young Bucks in this four-corner number one contender match, getting out of it and getting FTR, getting the dream match that people wanted since FTR joined AEW. Is it too early for the dream tag team match of Bucks versus FTR, or let's just pull the trigger and do it now?
There's no better time than the present.
There's no better time than the present, but how we got here is weird. We have a weird take on what the Young Bucks are doing, where they're heels, and we're supposed to cheer for them, and we're supposed to boo FTR. So we're getting heel versus heel. It's just interesting. It's interesting for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we don't want another. And I'm not knocking on Bailey and Sasha, because theirs has been pretty perfect. But we don't want another situation like that where we wait too long to where the interest kind of has already peaked.
True. Yeah, where they like Sasha and Bailey, they waited so long to give us that match on a big page.
And I mean, there's still interest there, but back in like May and June, they were like, "This is going to be SummerSlam main event. This is perfect." And now it's kind of like,
and maybe they drew it out too long.
Not even going to main event the show.
Yeah, and maybe they overcooked it, you know?
Yes.
So other people, Herman saying he loves to see how the Young Bucks are in a heel role, so he's feeling it. But Madigan, he loved AEW tonight, gave it a 9.5, and he thought NXT was great, giving a 9.0. They edged you out there. No, we always have to talk about John Clark. He favors NXT overall. That's why we have him cover it. But he will tell if it's as good or not. Mia Lee texting and saying, NXT, so fun. I love how they're using their women's superstars. We'll talk about that. They had a big return tonight in NXT with Toni Storm. She had a big night. Shotzi Blackheart wasn't successful, but she actually ended the show with a big announcement. Spin the wheel. Make the deal. We'll talk about that in a little bit with NXT if you're sticking around for that. Also, we have some sad news out of the UK. With the passing of Rev Pro wrestler Ryan Smile. I'll discuss that through the end of the night, and some news about John Cena before the end of the show as well. So stick with us here, guys. We will talk about your questions and all those different things. If you're with us live, go ahead and shout out where you guys are watching for the first time. We want to hear from all the new fans of the show, all the people checking us out. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications so you know when we go live. With Facebook, it's a little bit different. So you already like our page. Maybe you're already seeing this. You have to follow it. So if you do the extra follow button, you'll be able to get the notifications to know exactly when we go live. We're live after Raw. We're live after AEW NXT, and we're adding an additional Saturday morning show to follow up what's going on with Friday Night SmackDown. That's coming up this week. With Colin Tessier. So it's going to be pretty cool. Even more content for you. And of course, all of this video that you see is also available as audio podcasts as well. So go ahead and subscribe to the WrestleZone podcast. A lot of fun, exciting stuff there, including our AEW focus show, Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitudes. So let's get to some other things here on AEW that I enjoyed. Britt Baker is hilarious. They did a segment with her at a salon where she's getting a facial, and of course her fun comedic pal of Tony Schiavone is interviewing her while he's also on a separate massage table, and he got waxed, because why not? You're there, do the 40-year-old virgin thing. But it was one of those things indicative of what's going on with AEW that irks me. The Elite is supposed to be the pure wrestling brand, sports, fun things. We're getting a lot of being the Elite humor on AEW Dynamite. I thought they would kind of remain separate. It was fun, but it was fun, but it felt like something that should just be on Being the Elite, not on Dynamite, and they've kind of compartmentalized my brain in that way. So it's kind of hard for me to get over that here.
Look, to me on this, they've been going long enough now where they have their following that they can get away with this stuff and the people don't care. If they would have done this right from the start,
It would have bothered more
people
people.
would
Yeah.
have immediately said, this is the same as WWE or whatever.
Mm.
But now that it's been that long, people don't really make those comparisons anymore just because of that first year was a little different. But I definitely agree they're kind of being hypocritical at this point.
Do want to talk about some other big highlights from tonight's AEW. Chris Jericho and MJF are going to have a steak dinner next week. And this was a funny segment. This was built on the humor of MJF not saying he wants to join the inner circle, but wants to see the inner spiritual side of Chris Jericho. He didn't want to say inner. This was kind of goofy. Are they going to have a match? Are they not going to have a match? Are they going to have a tag team thing? I get where they're kind of drawing it out, but I want a little bit more conclusive idea of what's going to happen. Is he going to join this group, or are they going to have a one-on-one match?
Well,
It's all about the back and forth. What do you think, John?
I think they're going to turn on each other.
Soon.
We'll
see what happens.
Sooner rather than later.
Hopefully we get something put together over two well done, medium well steaks. That's how I like it. Medium well. How do you like your steak, John?
Medium rare.
Medium rare. You like it red. I like it red. Okay, all right. I can't judge you for that. Bit Milligan saying the match with Cody was super exciting. This was the match of the night. This was definitely the match of the night, but it did have some of those other AEW indulgent problems that I've been bringing up, where they just want to put too much into something here. And this match with a TNT title match, AEW's own big head honcho, Cody shows up. He is blonde. Once again, blondes are having more fun. And he takes on Orange Cassidy, and Orange Cassidy goes the distance with him, pits him with the beach break, and nearly pins him. All right. Only for it to go to a time limit draw. That's right. Cody didn't beat Orange Cassidy. He just got away with the title. So it looks like maybe we get Orange Cassidy versus Cody for the TNT Championship at AEW Full Gear. What say you?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they announce tonight that Darby Allin was getting a title match at Full Gear?
I think you're right. I think they did announce that Darby Allin was getting that's about what I was about to get at here. Are they going to sneak him into this situation here, considering
I do think that it is going to be
like a triple threat of some kind?
Yeah, I do think so, unless he gets a rematch before then, but I definitely think that with the way the card's shaping up, they need that one kind of multi-man match in there, and I think this is where you get it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Well, that's what I was going to get at. I want to talk about how the match was really cool, but there was all this noise outside of it. There was Dark Order still trying to get involved, trying to show their piece, and they got thrown out from ringside. And then you had Darby Allin on the outside, and then you had all these other elements, and then you had Arn Anderson, and then you had Brandy. It's like, just let the match be the match. Mm-hmm. Why do we need all this noise? You know what I mean? Around the I was kind of. I have ADD, okay, and this was a lot for me, even me, to think like this is too much. But
the anticipation's building to this rating you're about to give. It don't sound too good.
I'm getting there. And here's the thing: it is indicative of all the different things I see in AEW. When the matches are so good, and you have such a unique character like Orange Cassidy, when he fires up, it really matters because, he only shows emotion when it really matters. And Cody is so much his father's son in terms of how he carries himself. And he's so passionate in the things he does. And then you have all this other stuff going on outside of the ring. You have all this time throughout the rest of the show to get to all those things. And you have all this time to do that other stuff. And they just can't let something be what it is and stay in its lane. It's indulgence. I don't know who's letting them just have all of this. Like, it makes me question those things. Like, this is good, and I know it can be great. It's just right there. It's like when there's just one little extra ingredient that's going to make your chili the best chili ever. All right. This is very, very good chili. This is maybe the best chili I've had in a while. All right. This is autumn. Perfect time for chili. All right. But some of the spice is just a little off. And it's starting to bug me every single week. So I give, because of that reason, the expectations I had through the roof. I thought with those title matches and everything on the line that this would be a banger AEW Dynamite. Maybe one of the best they've had in a long time. And I thought last week's show was good. The week before, 2 weeks ago, bad. This one, disappointing. I give this Very, very soft 6.8. I can't give this that. It was a 6.8. It feels like there was just a ceiling. They knew they could go past it, but let's put all these other things on the floor and then we'll go up there. It felt like they built you up with a lot of different things to just, all right, now we're gonna throw all the build for the pay-per-view. And it was just like, give me the big payoffs. The big thing about Dynamite that people love about it is it feels almost like there's some pay-per-view type thing every week. There's a lot of developments. I think Full Gear is going to be a great show. I think they're building to some nice things there. I think it's odd that they're doing Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy again, since that was so controversial at their last pay-per-view. But it's not all bad. Let's see what fans are thinking. Here. Yeah, people bringing up Matt Hardy and Sammy again. James Espanto Fernando Tagoai says, if you're watching from the beautiful island nation of Cyprus or Malta, we're going for Malta, dude. All right, you know this, John. The WrestleZone podcast has charted on the Apple Sports podcast charts in Cyprus. If you know an island nation on a map of less than 1 million or less than 300,000 people, I'm of the thought that we can get number one. Let's find all the islands that we can and take them over. All right. We'll be the pirates of podcasting. I'm a fan of that. Other people with different takes here about what's going on here. Other people texting and saying, I see Inner Circle turning on Sammy and joining MJF. Well, that would be something there. I'm looking for some more comments here, flying by as fast as I can. Here we go. Johan Penna talking about me about my big complaint over the AEW ranking system. He says, Kevin, hearing you talk about the ranking system at AEW makes me wonder, why did they implement a ranking system in the first place if you're not going to use it properly? I have to agree with you there. Someone said, Big Kev, your Viagra-filled bias is showing again with your criticism of AEW. JK. Because people think I'm horny for WWE. If that's true, then I'm not horny for interference finishes. Did you see how much that upset me tonight? All right, they do that a lot in WWE as a way to get out of matches without having a conclusive finish, and did it again. You wrote yourself into a hole. Now we got people getting hit with Pac-Man machines. Any other match, I'd be excited for it. But the whole thing about FTR is they're champions and they do straight up wrestling. Now we got all this Gaga going on. We got Lady Gaga going on outside the ring here. Oh wow, Bob Coaster saying he does not have a lot of positive things to say about AEW tonight. Laura the Rock, though, seemingly enjoyed the show, giving it a 7.9. She thought much higher of it. So what did you guys think of AEW? What did you think of NXT? Give us your ratings for both shows. 1 out of 10, 1 being Bastion Booger, 10 being let's say Hiroshi Tanahashi is your dad, since I've gone to him before. So John Clark, let's talk WWE NXT. What did they have tonight, and how did they build up for the upcoming Halloween Havoc show? Because it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so they're definitely building up to Halloween Havoc, but they're also building up to the shows before Halloween Havoc, which led into a match that we got tonight that we've been waiting for quite some time now, which was the number one contender tag match we should have gotten 2 weeks ago that we finally got tonight between Undisputed Era and, of course, Danny Burch and Oni. And it was a pretty good match that ended up Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish won the match clean. And they are the number one contenders, and they will have a championship match next week on I almost said AEW. Next week on NXT. So what do you think for that tag team match? Kind of a rematch we've seen before, but what do you think?
I caught a little bit of this doing the 2-screen thing. This was a banger. I think when you had 2 big tag team matches open the show, this went counter to FTR and Best Friends. And for a while, I was just kind of like going back and forth, and just loving everything that they were doing. I mean, Undisputed Era, some people thought they were on the rocks really after the last big takeover. Now this seemingly puts them back on track towards something. Or is this simply just a setup for their demise?
Yes, I wanted to get into that. So I think we are going for a half split up here. So what I mean by that is I strongly, strongly believe that we're going to get Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish go their own separate way, while Kyle O'Reilly remains with Adam Cole as sort of like a babyface type role. I think that's where we're going here. There's many money matches here if we pit some of these members together with each other. And I do think that they've done everything they can do together, and
Yeah.
this is kind of how they're going to split them up. But I think that it's not going to be all four people going their separate ways. We're going to get
No.
like a 2-2, I think.
I agree. There is more of an upside in maybe breaking this faction up and creating something out of that. And then at some point, maybe you can put them back together in the main roster when you want to shuffle them around. They did it with the Shield, and it was entertaining. They've done it with the Generation X more than a few times. Sometimes, getting a team back together is a fun thing to see. And you can play on that history and do it. But I agree, they've ran their course in NXT as a faction. Them warring against each other, that's a takeover in itself. Doing one side of them on one side or four corners match or something like that. They're all characters that the NXT fans are invested in. I think some people would definitely be upset if they broke them up, right? I've heard some people say that, they got to move them to
I
Raw
can
or
name
SmackDown
one.
as their own team, right? But what you just laid out, that I'm into that. I'm into the idea of them going their own ways, and you can always get back to it. You can always come back to it and do some different things with it. And that also creates length and longevity for these characters. You can say like, they can always go back to that. Wouldn't you love to see that on SmackDown? Wouldn't you love to see that on Raw or maybe even NXT, right? I'm on board with it. But I do think, Breezango, though, is almost kind of playing the secondary players in this whole thing, and they're the champions. It shows how over the Undisputed Era is, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to get a good match next week. I'm excited to see, how they go about it, how fast they pull the trigger on this breakup if they're doing that. So it should be interesting to see. A little bit later on in the show, we had what I thought was actually the match of the night, and this was Johnny Gargano taking on Austin Theory. And again, Austin Theory again looking impressive, even though he lost yet again. He
Mm-hmm.
continues to look impressive, and I think that's really what matters. I get these losing week after week after week, but I think he's redeeming himself as far as in the ring goes. I know he had a shaky start on Raw. He was in WrestleMania for, but he didn't look too good on the main roster. But now at NXT, I think he's looking pretty good. And like I said, he lost to Johnny Gargano. But what do you think about Theory having these pretty good matches on NXT?
I guess at some point you got to pull the trigger and put a big win on him. Now that doesn't exactly make him a guy that you're going to put in a takeover match or build up to, but then that means you're kind of like, are you burning TV with this guy where you have to have him on every
Now, granted,
TV show?
Gargano made him look good.
Yeah.
Gargano
Oh
made
no,
him
and
look good.
he looks great, but it's like, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? I mean, we're now in that point where patience is something to ask a lot of with people, because I could watch both shows at the same time, and we're always looking for the big conclusive thing that's been built up to ever so quickly, and you can't build up to things ever so
He
quickly.
needs to
So
start winning soon.
yeah, I think Austin wins sooner than later. I think you got to do that sooner, at least before the next takeover. Have him get a big conclusive win, and now he's corrected course. He's found himself. He always had the talent, but once he got his mind right, you can go in that direction. And I think a lot of people have expectations for Austin as a guy who could be big things in WWE. This guy came into WWE very, very young, and some people are saying he's the next John Cena in terms of that full package talent, but have we seen it yet? And I think they're kind of playing on that idea of he hasn't met the potential. So meanwhile, though, Johnny Gargano, red hot. They set him up for some big things tonight at the end of the night. And he laid out Damian Priest as he's now the number one contender. And he's going to have to spin the wheel to make the deal. What did you think of that added element in an overrun for NXT? They went 5 minutes over. So if you're watching AEW, you can flip over. You got the final segment. Very, very clever of WWE and USA Network to do this. We
Yeah,
haven't
but
seen them do that on Raw in a
and
long,
that's
long
why
time, maybe even over a year.
they haven't even done it in NXT for a while, which leads me to believe that not many people would have switched over because they weren't going to be expecting anything to keep going.
Mhm.
However, I think the concept is pretty good. It leaves a very unpredictable aspect into what fans can expect of the show, and I think this is just further, making fans want to tune in 2 weeks to Halloween Havoc.
It's a gimmick, man. It's a gimmick where you got to see what they're going to take out of the box. It's who's the masked man, who's the mystery opponent.
And we could be revisiting what we talked about before, which leads into my next part about we had another number one contender match, which was Candice LeRae and Shotzi Blackheart. Very good match. Candice LeRae got the win. Not necessarily clean, but she did get the win. And here we revisit the potential for both Candice and Johnny to walk out with championships. What do you
Yeah,
think?
this will be the second time we're on the same
Finally pull the
show.
trigger this time?
Yeah, because they did
Big
this at
show, big
Takeover.
Wednesday night Halloween Havoc. You know you're going to have at least one title change hands. Do we have more than one though?
We thought we were gonna have a title change hands at Takeover, and it didn't happen.
Well, we're not going to get an NXT championship match, so
That's true. That's true. So let me talk about this match. This was a hell of a match. This is Shotzi Blackheart's best match in WWE so far, and she was on the losing end. Candice, we know she's going to have great matches, and she's had a few already, and that maybe this is the year they're finally pulling the trigger with her as a big time player. She's proven she can do the character superstar stuff. But this was a real test for Shotzi. We knew she wasn't going to win, and they have expectations for her to put her in this critical hosting role. They don't do that with everyone. They only do that with characters they think fit. And she fits as the horror kid, coming out in the tank. She's a really cool entrance. But I mean, I saw some great, amazing stuff from her, from selling and taking brutal bumps outside the ring. That bulldog splash that she kind of took on the apron was really, really rough. Eddie Hartwell kind of getting herself involved as like the secondary hand and sneaking the knuckles in there. It was a dusty finish. Just like maybe I'm just on a clean finish kick here, John. I just want to see some people get definitive wins. I wasn't too bothered by this one, because at that point I hadn't seen a bunch of different dusty finishes or something like that. But I like where they're going. I think Shotzi looked great. I think this is a great performance to her, even on the losing end. She can take it on the chin. Literally, she took a knuckle shot, brass knuckles on the chin. And she'll be featured quite prominently next week. I love the addition of
especially at Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, and it's a perfect thing for her. It makes sense. It makes complete, perfect sense. And you're the goth kid at your high school says Halloween's really, really cool, right? We get it. This is spooky season. Go with the spooky person. What other big things we see here on NXT?
So we continued with the whole Killian Dane and Drake Maverick tag team partnership, which is starting to finally get a little more serious on the show. They lost, though, tonight. That's important to know. They did not win their match. They lost clean to Imperium tonight. And when the match ended, they were interfered by Everrise. They had taken out Killian Dane, so he's laying on the outside of the ring. Drake Maverick's in there by himself. He gets pounded on by both members of Everrise. Here comes Killian Dane, clotheslines both of them, looks at Drake Maverick in the face, and he says, "Nobody can hit you except for me."
That runaround shot where they were shooting it, like Everrise was beating down on him, and you kind of thought Killian Dane was done. He was just frustrated. Maybe he had walked off, and Drake was just going to get beat up by these goons. He runs kind of almost over the cameraman's shoulder and takes out Everrise with this big double clothesline rescue. I thought this was really cool.
I think the entrance is really cool. Yep, the goofy theme song's still there, and this is definitely going to go somewhere. This is going far, I think.
Yeah, this is a fun act. These guys have a really, really good upside. Drake Maverick has proven himself to be a character.
Drake fits that role perfectly, and
he's getting something out of Killian he's never had before.
And I think
or at least that we've seen in WWE.
His role perfectly too. Yes.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm looking forward to where they go with this. And it'll be an exciting thing. Maybe they get a title shot down the line, but
I think they do.
Yeah. And I just say that because they're just over. They didn't win tonight, but they're over. Imperium looked fun. I think Imperium always looks super exciting, but
they just need Walter.
Yes, they just need Walter. I think that's the thing with Imperium is they don't feel like a complete act without Walter involved. But obvious reasons he's stuck in Europe, COVID, all those different things. They're a fun team, but I do think they're not. You can't say that they're. Listen, Drake and Killian Dane are entertaining, and they have a fun humor back and forth, and we want to see how that's goofy. And it almost takes away from the match, but I'm okay with that. I think NXT needs more of those things where I say there's too much sports entertainment type things on AEW. NXT needs that. They need a little bit more sugar with it because they're so meat and potatoes, wrestling, kick ass, those type of things. What's next?
Let's get into the main event tonight, which was the NXT North American Championship between Damian Priest and Dexter Lumis. The focus on this match was quite a bit on Damian Priest. He looked very good. Dexter got a little bit of a taxing, but you could tell this match was for Priest to look good. And as expected, Priest did win the match over Lumis. However, we did have kind of a choppy ending as Cameron Grimes snuck from under the ring and attacked Dexter Lumis when the ref wasn't looking, which allowed Damian Priest to go get the win. And then the match ended like that. And Priest had no idea until Grimes comes into the ring after the match. Priest takes him out and he says, don't take my moment away, or something like that. So it was a pretty good match. The ending was certainly pretty dramatic, but Priest is the guy. Like I've been saying for a while, Priest is going to have this title probably for a while.
I think so too. I was surprised. I thought Johnny Gargano would get it off him, but what's the chances that Johnny gets it off him next? We're 2 weeks away now from Halloween Havoc.
He looks great in the ring. Priest is definitely adapting to being a WWE person very well. He continues to look better. I think the championship helps him quite a bit. All in all, thought it was a pretty good show. And I am going to give this one.
What do we give it? Dramatic pause.
I'm giving it a 6 3/4.
Oh, why? Why? That's pretty low. You've been enjoying it the past few weeks.
I don't think it was bad enough to be 6.5 or lower, but I don't know. It feels like they could be doing stuff a little better.
All right, so it's almost like AEW where your expectations are built up.
It's getting repetitive a little bit. Like
okay.
It's slow. Let's just put it that way.
You want more week to week. You want a bigger payoff week.
Yeah, they're building pretty slowly right now. You can tell. Oh, one thing I want to cover that I forgot. We mentioned last week how Xia Li had gotten a mysterious letter from whoever it was. And tonight she went up to William Regal and she said, "I really need to have a match next week. This is pretty serious." And he's like, "I'll consider it." And she's like, "No, you don't understand. Like, I've received some news. I really need to have a match next week. Like this is my career." And he said again, "I'll consider it." And he walked into his office, and that was the end of the segment. But she was dressed up like in basically like a suit and tie. And I don't know where they're going with this, but that's something interesting. Yeah. So
what do you think of the return of Toni Storm this week as well? We didn't touch on that.
She did good. I thought it was well done, but they just didn't pick the right competitor. And with the whole Robert
you thought
Stone
they could have done it somebody
thing,
better than Aaliyah, right?
Yeah, so this was a squash match. Tony did not really get much offense in. This goes hand in hand with the segment that Ember Moon did tonight, where she pretty much said, like, put the whole women's roster on alert. You know, she said, "I don't care if you're Toni Storm, I don't care if you're Rhea Ripley, I don't care if you're whoever. This is going to be my brand," with the whole new Ember's Law thing where she will somehow get the title again. Seemingly, she'll be feuding with Candice LeRae after Halloween Havoc, but we'll see where that goes.
We'll see where that goes. Someone named Ember Moon has to be a part of Halloween Havoc, right? That lends itself.
Maybe in an interference capacity, but I don't think she's getting a match at the show.
WWE is certainly building it up. I mean, you felt underwhelmed as we're kind of. I think this is also just a victim of both shows, both AEW and NXT, being so good all the time. So when the standard is set at a certain point, we always want to see it go up.
I think we're so used, at least for NXT, we're so used to them only having really these takeovers like once every 2 to 3 months. And slipping in this Halloween Havoc thing in between is almost like they're doing a pay-per-view once a month, at least right now. You just came off of one, you had In Your House, which was a special, and then we had the TakeOver 30, then we had TakeOver 31, and then we had
TakeOver 31 we were not expecting.
Yeah,
that was kind of
yes. And now we're getting the Halloween Havoc, which people thought might be around Survivor Series time. But now we're getting this on Halloween week, and now will we get the TakeOver Survivor Series weekend? They're kind of adding more and more in there, and
it creates a different challenge for the dynamic of their storytelling, where they kind of have to turn things over a little bit, and you can't do the long cook, and you can't do the long payouts, and you sometimes can't have big banger matches on TV because we got to save those for the TakeOver. We got to save them for the Halloween Havoc, right?
Yeah, so I agree. And the last part that we should mention about NXT tonight is we could confirm with all of the viewers and listeners here that they were not a part of the draft. Nobody came over.
Nobody came over, which leads us to this story, which is one of our big stories, especially related to tonight. As we got word from PWI Insider that a former Raw superstar and a former NXT champion was due to return to the black and yellow brand. We don't know when, and it isn't confirmed, obviously, by this superstar or WWE, but Andrade went undrafted in the draft for either Raw or SmackDown, and a lot of people thought this would leave the door open for him to go wherever he wants, which is what you can do if you are undrafted. Interesting. What would you think of Andrade returning to NXT?
I'm all for it, honestly. I think it can't hurt him. He's had absolute 5-star matches in NXT. He started off pretty good on the main roster, but kind of ever since has been going slightly downhill and downhill and downhill.
Mhm.
But if I'm not mistaken, they had I think we covered this on WrestleZone earlier today, where story came out where it turns out that he's getting a minor procedure and he'll be out for, they think, 4 to 5 weeks. And the only thing we know is when he does come back, he is expected to get a major push. We do not know on which brand that is, but that is what we know.
Different takes here. People also bring up Rey Garza wants to bring up about NXT Rhea Ripley versus Racquel Gonzalez. This match was made tonight.
Yes, yeah. That was a match made for Halloween Havoc. We thought Rhea might be on her way out, but she doesn't seem to be on her way out. So could she possibly win and go on to feud with somebody like Candice? Who knows?
Certainly. We'll get that next week. And we also learned about Finn Balor. We got a really gross picture tonight on NXT of a steel girder is basically been like put inside his mouth to keep his jaw there. This looked, I felt good I didn't eat before.
They mentioned that the NXT Championship future will be determined in the next few weeks. So I think this is all on how fast Finn Balor is able to heal and recover. They said, the future of this NXT Championship will be decided over the next couple weeks. The only possibility I think that can be is how quickly he recovers, and possibly
which
when
puts
Karrion Kross is ready to come back.
It's another situation where the title's up in the air, and that we were just coming out of this 2 months ago. So
look, if I'm the decision maker, I either do one of two things, which they're both ultimately the same thing. It's either you take the title off of Balor or you don't. But then you have a match between Balor and Kross to see who actually is the NXT champion. That's what I would do.
Absolutely. It seems like they got to figure out something. They got to get into a clean lane there with the NXT Championship, and it is something that's catching up with them.
Possibly
they're going to do some great things with Ridge Holland last week, and now we know he'll be on the shelf for a very indefinite period of time. Yeah. Will Finn Balor have to drop this title, or is that jaw going to be unwired in time for him to be able to defend it sometime around Survivor Series? It's a very short window to heal from a broken jaw, by the way. That isn't something you can heal from. This guy's not eating solid foods. It's going to be hard to maintain the shape that he wants to be in to perform here. Let's get into some unfortunate news. No way to really transfer over into this story that is outside of AEW and NXT. We learned some sad news from the UK wrestling scene. Ryan Smile, a longtime veteran of Rev Pro and OTT, passed away today. He is a veteran of the English wrestling scene. He held the Rev Pro Undisputed British Cruiserweight Championship, along with the Over the Top No Limits Championship, and is also a 3-time Relentless Division champion in Kamikaze Pro. A big outpouring of support for him, his family, from the community of UK wrestling fans and wrestlers alike. And you can see some great moments from his career up now at WrestleZone. Our deep condolences are to him, his family, and all of his friends. Not much to say. We don't know many details about it. I know a lot of people are asking things. We've heard some speculation online. I wouldn't go with any of that. The family has not stated anything. We don't have any of those facts. So I don't like when someone passes away that there is this rush to make any type of theory to things, because it's a developing story and an unfortunate one. And when we find out more, we'll tell you. I don't want to speculate much on it, but thoughts are with this young wrestler and his family and what will happen with them. We can't really get into it much more beyond that. We also want to talk about what's going on with AEW. As I mentioned, they mentioned their title tournament tonight. Do want to talk about this before we get off air. This seemingly will set up a match between Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. That's the way it's looking, but it's not for sure.
It's
The
the
tournament
most
will also
predictable
feature.
tournament of all time. Let's not beat the bush. This
You
is the
think that's
most
that? You think that's where they're
predictable
going?
tournament of all time. Yes, that's where they're going. Where else would they go? We're gonna get what? Phoenix Jr. versus whoever
Mhm.
was on the other side of the bracket. I mean, come on, we know it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I think it's going in that direction as well. But you can see the full tournament bracket up now at WrestleZone. It also features Colt Cabana, Joey Janela is in there, Ray Phoenix, Penta, Zero M. That's a weird thing. You're gonna have the Lucha Brothers fighting each other next week, so they'll be on there as well. Wardlow versus Jungle Boy also being featured in the mix. We also have news from WWE. They have a new sponsorship, a very almost I wouldn't say overdue one. You think with Stone Cold Steve Austin out there clanging and banging those beer cans for so many years that WWE would have had an official beer sponsor. And I don't think they've ever had an official beer sponsor. I know they have wine. They have wines that
Yeah,
rock, right? We
yeah.
got that. But WWE continue to be in the booze business as they have confirmed today that they have an official beer for SummerSlam. And it will be Constellation brand beers. They produce Victoria beers along with Modelo, and these will be rolled out. Maybe some type of branding on the can. That'll be pretty cool. And we'll get these at some point in the next year. Overdue to have a WWE beer, right?
I mean, I guess they should have done Stone Cold IPA.
Well, Stone Cold has his El Segundo beer, right? And he had those when he was on TV. He was. That's what he was doing his beer salutes with, right?
Yeah, I guess. We also got news about John Cena today.
John Cena is the official voice of Honda.
Not just that, though.
Oh, not just that. I was going to get on that. He's the voice of Honda, so maybe he'll be a voice in your car. But yeah, he's going to be voicing commercials and doing different things. But got married again
Yes, he did for the second time.
for the second time.
Hopefully the last.
Who is the lucky lady that's going to give him an attitude adjustment?
Oh God, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't. I know you know who it is. You say it. I don't even know.
I honestly do not know this person's name. So
Oh
this
yeah,
is
yeah. We're looking like jokers.
yeah.
Shay Shariatsade.
Yes, that's what I'm
Shay
looking at.
Shariatsade. I don't know.
I say I don't know her name because I've never heard of her before. But
They got married in Florida. So
yes, he's been married in Florida before. So John has been married before. And the little we do know about her, TMZ Sports tells us that she was born in Iran, but is a Canadian citizen. She worked as a product manager for a tech company in Vancouver.
Yes, okay, now that it's clicking now. Yeah.
And they've reached out to comment for Cena's camp, but he has not stated anything just yet. This is his second marriage. Of course, he
still
was
doesn't
engaged.
want kids. He still does not want kids. No kids.
no kids. We don't know about that, though.
Oh, he said.
Children quite some time, but we don't know about that. It's worth noting that, of course, obviously, John Cena once got on bended knee in a WrestleMania ring on a very, very big televised stage that everyone saw coming to propose to Nikki Bella roughly 6 years ago.
And why didn't they? And you know the answer to this. Why didn't they?
Why didn't they? Why is that?
Do you know the answer?
She wanted kids, right?
She wanted kids, and he didn't. Yeah, that's why they didn't get
well,
married.
That was you. Were you a Total Divas watcher? Were you a big follower?
I was not, but I got to point out that you think that would be something that they would have talked about before, not just like, hey, let's get married.
I watched Total Divas enough, or Total Bellas, right? I watched it enough to kind of know that, are they just in this relationship at some point for the show? I'm not saying they were.
I get what you're saying. And originally he was open to the idea of possibly having kids, but then it was clear that he did not because he wants to focus just on himself and his career. You can't blame him. He's a millionaire, so.
Yeah, well, also he's not just, he doesn't have a normal career. You know what I mean? I've met a lot of people in entertainment, and this I'm not speaking for John Cena. Who am I? Look at my apartment. Who am I to speak for him? I think a lot of people get into creative arts, especially in the last 10 years, and it's so turbulent, and it's such a demanding career. Some people get into it and they get past a certain age, they don't want to start a family, because they're like, I already have a child. It's my career. It sounds like just another selfish thing, but I know people that kind of have that mindset.
I'm surprised he hasn't been around more WWE wise. You would think that he would be around just a little more because when The Rock first kind of got started and the same thing that kind of Cena's doing, The Rock was more actively involved with like wrestling and his other, pursuits.
Hmm.
Batista, you might argue the same for him, but it's like John Cena when he got started with all these hosting, actor, commercial stuff, like
Hmm.
he's gone. Like he's gone. And he said multiple times, I will never completely leave. And maybe he hasn't, but he still to this day says, I'm a WWE guy, but he's never around. But is
He's
he
never
really?
around.
Is he
But
really
when
though?
when do you think we see him again?
He's in my mind, he's like the new Undertaker. He's only going to be a WrestleMania type person, maybe every other year, every 2, 3 years, or maybe like a Stone Cold Steve Austin role, where he only comes to do a segment or a special
Mm.
twice a year. I don't ever see him going into sort of like that Brock Lesnar role where he comes in for a period of 3 or 4 months and will wrestle and then goes away. I just don't see it.
I agree. I think he does have that featured player role, and we only see them now and then. Maybe he
I
could
mean,
get into the Brock Lesnar lane where he kind of comes back for a program and
Lesnar
comes
was
back for a little
pretty
bit.
damn near full time last year for the longest part. He was the champion. He was showing up at least twice a month. That was pretty big for him in WWE in general.
Emmett Crotty texting in. Love that name, Emmett. He goes, post COVID Cena returns. And maybe we get on
Which
the other
could be
side of this
3
whole
years
COVID.
from now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, oh, don't say that. Don't say I have to wait that long, right, John? Yeah, I think John Cena is one of those attractions that WWE kind of has in the back of their deck here to pull out as an ace for selling tickets. If you do a WrestleMania with live fans, I don't know what that arrangement could be. We've been talking about it on the show for weeks about whether or not that's going to be in Tampa. It feels like a foregone conclusion that it won't be in California with the regulations there. John Cena being featured on that show would be a big attraction. That would be a big, big attraction, don't you think?
Yeah, just like the Second City Savior would be too.
Don't play with me like that.
Oh,
Do
well, I'm
not play.
playing with you now.
You're playing with me now. I'm in Chicago. I got my ear to the street. All right, I got my ear down to the street. I'm hearing. I'm
You're
hearing to
within
see if people
20
are
miles
talking.
of where he's at right now.
Have I ever told you about my chance, my very, very glimpse of CM Punk in real life?
No, you gotta tell me now that you
It was
said that.
very, very awkward. Incredibly awkward.
Go ahead, tell me.
I'm in a neighborhood. I don't have to say what the neighborhood is because I say I know. I always think
But
people are going
wait,
to go
first
there.
tell me when this was.
This was at night. So
But
this
like
was at
how
night. So
recently?
it's already dark. And it was like maybe last October, November-ish time. And I'm
Okay.
I'm doing the comedy hustle at night, trying to do it around podcasting, different things like that. And I'm with a wonderful lady friend, and we're enjoying each other's company, and we're briskly arm in arm walking down the street, and I'm fairly certain I see him walk by me, and I do the total head turn. Like what?
Like this was like downtown or like just in the neighborhood or what?
It's in a neighborhood. It's in a neighborhood, but I mean in the city, right? And enough where we're on a big street and like we could just cross across the street. We were supposed to cross the street at that point to get over to the next open mic. And you go from one open mic to another, and you want to get there at a certain time so you get a good spot. So you
Yeah.
don't have to wait a long time to go up. So I'm with the lady gal, and she's trying to get a good spot at the open mic, and I am too. And we kind of have this 15-minute window before we need to get over there and really get a good spot, or we're gonna have to wait like a whole another 2 hours to go up and tell 4 minutes of okay jokes and work out, right? So we kind of have a short time frame, and we're both in a rush, but we're arm in arm. I remember because she had the arm around me like through here, and I turn like this, and she is on the other side of me. She's on the right of me, and she gets kind of like jerked. And she goes, "What is it? Don't you know we're trying to get over there on time? Because we could walk from one to the other." And I said, "Oh, that's CM Punk." And she goes, "Who?" She doesn't know who wrestling is.
Yeah.
He's like the biggest wrestler in the world. And I'm like whispering because I think maybe he could hear me. And I don't want to be like a dork about it. And I look over and she's like, "Whoever that guy is, he's looking at you." And I was like, "Oh," and I just let's go. We're not
So
doing
you didn't
anything.
turn back around to
We're
see.
walking. And I just saw enough where I was like, "Oh, I don't want to freak the guy. I don't want to bother him or anything like that."
So, but
He's
when she told you that he was looking at you, you didn't turn back around to look again or anything.
no, because it was already awkward then, right?
So
So,
so you're like 100% sure it was him then?
oh yeah. I was 100% sure it was him.
Was
And
he by himself?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter who
It's
he
just
was with.
weird. Like, was he just out on a walk or something, or
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, something like that. You know, so
okay.
it doesn't matter what it's not my business what he was doing, but it was just one of those things where like you meet someone you really admire and you just come off looking like a total fucking dork.
Oh, I'd be
So
in the same boat. I'd be in the.
yeah,
It'd be
exactly.
hard not to say anything.
Yeah, and usually when I meet wrestlers, I meet them in a professional circumstance. We're doing interviews, or you know, I'm doing stuff with AAW, or I've gone and interviewed wrestlers backstage at AEW. You meet people, it's different. They're introduced to you. I don't like accosting people. I really, really want to tell people that just me working in media. I have my other job with 101 WKQX. Fans, they want to meet you. They want to meet you in like a formal circumstance where they know they're meeting you. Not like it's work, but like it's they know they're prepared for it. They're
So
in
you're
the
not being a
headspace.
fanboy.
Yes. Don't bother people when they're having a meal. Don't come over and ask someone for a selfie when they're at a urinal.
So while you're on the subject, I gotta mention that I was at a live event here in State College a couple years ago, and after the show was over, we went to Texas Roadhouse in State College. So we walk in and we're sitting down and we're eating, and on the other side of the restaurant, I look out of the corner of my eye, and I instantly know that it's the Miz and Maurice that are sitting there eating dinner.
Okay.
So I'm talking to
John, don't tell me you went over and asked for a
no, no,
picture
no,
while they're
no,
eating.
no. I'm talking to the guy I was with, and we're talking to about over there. Firstly, nobody else in there like knows who that is except us. And
Okay.
luckily, and we did not have any like gear on from the event that would indicate that we were there. So it's not like they would look at us and be like, "Oh God, they know."
Yeah.
So sitting there eating, and so they get done with their meal and they're on their way out. So Maurice leaves first, and Miz is still, I guess, leaving the tip or whatever. So when he gets up out of his booth to walk out, I look over and I said, "Hey, Mike," and I waved to him, and he looked over and he smiled and gave me a wave, and that
Yeah.
was it. Then he walked
That's
out. Like that was
see,
it.
that's the polite stuff. You can do that. There's nothing
But
that's nothing wrong.
I have been to say like an indie show here in the area where Mick Foley was there, and he went to a local convenience store after. I was also there. I knew he was there, but he was flooded with people, and I just was like, oh.
Do you feel bad for him, or you're like, I'd like to meet him, but not under these circumstances, you know?
I do, but at the same time, people have openly said before, like they welcome it. They don't care. They accept it. So it's hard to know before if you're dealing with somebody that's not going to care, or if it's somebody that likes their privacy. Like it just really depends. So it's
True.
hard to know beforehand. So you want to take the safe route of just leave them alone. But at the same time, you're like, I might not get this opportunity again.
We brought up earlier that WWE now sponsors beer, right?
Yes.
Or they have a beer sponsorship with Victoria Beer and Modelo Especial. Great beer. Wonderful beer. Love that beer. Eric Bubba ODonnell. When is WWE going to have a marijuana sponsorship?
Maybe when it's legal
Well,
everywhere.
it's legal in some states.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it's legal in some states. When here's the thing.
How about
That's
never?
not anytime soon, guys. I know that's one of those cultural things that definitely feels like it's a big page turn. I live in a state in Illinois where recreational is available. It's been medicinally available for many, many years. And WWE does have segments of their audience that definitely would be appealing to them. But there's still a Fortune 500 company that bases a lot of their product and licensing off of families, even though we're talking about them having a beer sponsorship. But I'm in my 30s. I also buy beer. So them having a beer sponsorship is pretty darn cool. Or maybe I buy a bottle of wine for my friends for the holidays and it has the Undertaker on it and they want that. Marijuana's, this isn't like a shot at marijuana. I'm not speaking for anyone at WrestleZone or mandatory or anything. It still is something that in many parts of the country isn't completely legal in a way that people find to be a consumer product in a normal way. So I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Nothing political, just what it is. Just what it is. Fun question. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't mind to get that in there as well. So we'll be back in the mix tomorrow afternoon. Big long show to get you ready for the weekend. We'll take a bunch of extra questions and different things like that. Here we go. We'll get this one on here. Just because we're going to do a bunch of questions tomorrow. If you want to join us for it, make sure your notifications are on. We'll be live with you. We'll talk NXT AEW ratings. We'll talk about the developing situation with COVID coming out of the collective events in Indiana. Hope everyone's safe coming out of that. By the way, we'll have some more information on that. We're waiting for more information overnight to kind of come out about that. There was one confirmed case at those shows. We want to see how serious that gets within the next 24 hours. We would have talked about it here on the show, but we are acknowledging it. We're aware of it. We're following it. We're waiting for more information to come in, and we're hoping for everyone to get the best results they're looking for here. But one more question before we're done with you tonight. John Cena, talked about him getting married, settled down, got the new wife. Maybe we get him back in the ring. We already talked about WrestleMania, obviously, would be the stage for it. We don't get The Rock coming back to WWE. That seems pretty hard. Maybe The Rock doesn't come back, but maybe the tribal chief of WWE comes back. They've done Roman versus John Cena before, and Roman almost sent John Cena packing. Is a top-tier WWE superstar some years ago. And it was a big match. They actually didn't do that on a WrestleMania. They did that what's the big climax right before WrestleMania pay-per-view that they do? Which one am I thinking of?
Royal Rumble?
No, like it was between Rumble. It was between Elimination Chamber and
Fastlane?
Yes, they did it on Fastlane. And they did the post-show, and they made it seem like John Cena was done. Like he's on his way out, and he'll play a role at this.
When
and
was
he'll play.
this?
Well, it was a couple of years ago, and it really made me think like, oh, that was them really trying to pass the torch to Roman, right? During the whole Roman is the guy, and here's the old guy saying that he's the guy now. But I think John Cena coming back, he's the Hulk Hogan.
Oh, I think you're talking about 2018 when he raised AJ Styles saying after he lost.
Yes.
I think, yep.
Yes, and he's done a lot of those torch passing moments. But I think if WWE ever needed him, in terms of just peaking interest in them during a critical time of the year. This is that time of the year, but you have John Cena, who is a huge movie star now, tied to franchises. He's going to be in the next Fast and the Furious film. He's going to be in a Jason Bourne kind of spinoff spy thriller movie produced by The Rock. He's going to have his own game show, right? On, what is that, on TBS? All right, it's going to be on TBS. So
yeah,
he has
so.
I know he has a game show product coming out sometime soon. I can't remember.
He has all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah,
I know he
tons of
hosts
different things. Give me the voice
now.
of Honda. Give me the voice of a car, right? So here's the thing. He's got a lot going on. It might be hard. It might be just as hard to get John Cena to come back to WWE as it is The Rock. And then you have the insurance window that comes up with those different movies and different things like that. I don't know if we get a Roman versus Cena match. I'd love to see it happen. But I'm on the side of no, though it does write itself pretty well with the things that Roman is saying and the fires that he is starting. That would be certainly a huge match if WWE could get it together.
Yeah, I agree, but I think it's more realistic that we see The Rock versus Roman. It's already been confirmed there's a mutual interest in the idea.
Yes.
I think it's only a matter of both sides saying, let's do it.
Yeah, and it's something where The Rock has stated it several times. If he comes back for the match, it's going to be with Roman. It's going to be with Roman, and kind of writes itself. And maybe WWE's kind of
think of the killer heat on Roman if he just attacks The Rock after, just beats. Oh man,
dude, where's fantasy booking, right? COVID's done, right? Maybe the first big movie event, right?
I'm available for hire.
Yeah, just Roman shows up at a movie premiere. Roman shows up on a talk show, and he's in the audience, and The Rock is there. Something.
He shows up at XFL opening day when
the XFL press conference or something like that. Come on, writes itself. Writes itself. Writes itself. So we'll see what happens here. We'll be back with you tomorrow afternoon. Once again, like us on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, turn those notifications on, make sure that bell is on Facebook, like the page and follow so you get notifications on. Don't forget to subscribe to the WrestleZone podcast as well for hours of quality content every single week, including this week coming up on Saturday, the premiere of our new SmackDown post show, which I'm told has a very, very ridiculous name. A name that may get people to say, why are you guys doing this? Or, wow, that's hilarious. We're not sure. We're shooting for the latter, but we'll see what you think when it comes out. Thank you so much for supporting what we do. John and I are with a collective of people that work really, really, really hard on things. John works for us on the weekends and builds up to big pay-per-view coverage. And so when you're watching those pay-per-views and you're following WrestleZone, you're following his great work. You can follow him on Twitter where, John?
John R. Clark 12.
You can follow me. You can see right there on screen. You can follow me at Kev Kellum on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for supporting all the things I'm doing. I'm going to be busy coming up October 29th with AAW Alive on Fight.tv for just $12.99. Mance Warner going to be on the card, the big AAW heavyweight champion. Just dropped a promo with him where I kept his beer cold. You can watch that on my Twitter page right now at Kev Kellum, dropping the UE signs up on there. Thank you guys so much for supporting what we do. Honestly, you guys are a big part of making this very, very stressful world we're in right now a whole lot easier, just sitting here and talking the wrestling. And I hope we provided some fun escape for you. You're watching wrestling to be entertained, or you're following it to be entertained. Even if you're not watching it, maybe a podcast or a show like this online provides it for you. That's what we want to do. We want to try and make sure you're enjoying it. He's waving goodbye. I'm waving goodbye. But remember, when watching wrestling, please do what, Jonathan?
Why don't you tell me? I don't remember.
Oh, okay.